Meet David. He's 42, lives in Ohio, works hard, saves diligently, and for the last 11 years, he's been putting $400 a month into a mutual fund his bank recommended when he first opened his account. He felt smart. He felt responsible. He thought he was building wealth. Then, one afternoon, his neighbor, same age, similar salary, casually mentions he's been investing in ETFs. Same market, same broad index. But his neighbor's account had grown noticeably more. Not because he took more risk, not because he picked better stocks. The difference? Fees, tax, and one decision David didn't even know he was making. Now, here's what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to tell you which one wins in the first 60 seconds like every other channel. Because the truth is, it depends on who you are, how old you are, and what country you're in. Stay with me till the end of this video because I'm going to give you real numbers, actual dollar figures, what a $10,000 investment looks like in both vehicles over 20 years. No fluff, no vague advice, just facts. Let's start with the basics, and I'll make this quick because I know you're not here for a finance lecture. A mutual fund is a pooled investment vehicle. Thousands of investors put their money together, and a professional fund manager decides where it goes. Which stocks to buy, when to sell, how to rebalance. You're trusting a human being with your money, and that human being gets paid whether they perform or not. An ETF, exchange-traded fund, is also a pooled investment, also holds a basket of assets. But here's the big difference. It trades on a stock exchange, just like a share of Apple or Volkswagen or Commonwealth Bank. And in most cases, it simply tracks an index. The S&P 500, the FTSE 100, the ASX 200, with no fund manager making judgment calls. Same concept, very different structure. And that structural difference changes everything about fees, taxes, and long-term returns. Both can hold stocks, bonds, real estate assets, and international securities. Both can be part of a 401k in the US, an ISA in the UK, an RRSP in Canada, or a super fund in Australia. So neither is exotic. Both are mainstream. The question is, which one works harder for your money? Let's talk about an important part of this video, fees. If there is one thing I need you to take from this video, it's this. Fees are not a small thing. They are a wealth-destroying force that operates silently every single year while you sleep. Let's talk about the expense ratio. That's the annual fee charged as a percentage of your investment. The average actively managed mutual fund charges between 0.5% and 1.5% per year. Some go higher. Some legacy funds in the UK and Australia still charge over 1.75%. In Canada, the average mutual fund MER, that's the management expense ratio, sits around 2.0%. That's not a typo. But ETFs? The average broad market ETF charges between 0.03% and 0.25%. Vanguard's VOO, which tracks the S&P 500, charges just 0.03% per year. You can even get its twin SPYM, which tracks the same index, for just 0.02% per year. Fidelity has funds at 0. Yep, you heard me, 0. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's just 1%. What's the big deal? Hold that thought. I'll show you the exact dollar damage at the end of this video. It will genuinely shock you. Beyond the expense ratio, mutual funds sometimes charge sales loads, front-end loads of up to 5.75% when you buy in, or back-end loads when you sell. ETFs have none of that. You do pay a small brokerage commission when you buy or sell, but most major brokers today, Fidelity, Schwab, Vanguard, Hargreaves Lansdown, Questrade, Comsec, have moved to zero commission ETF trading. This one surprises a lot of people. When you buy a mutual fund, you don't trade at a live price. You submit your order, and at the end of the trading day, your purchase is executed at the NAV, net asset value. That's the fund's total assets divided by total shares, calculated once daily after markets close. It doesn't matter if you placed your order at 9 a.m. or 3 p.m., you get the same closing price. ETFs are completely different. They trade in real time, all day, on an exchange. You can buy at 10 a.m. and sell at 2 p.m. if you want. The price moves tick by tick, just like a stock. This gives you precision. You can set limit orders, stop-loss orders, and execute at the exact price you want. For long-term investors, whether you're 30 or 65, intraday trading might not matter much. But for those who want control and transparency, ETFs win this round clearly. One nuance: because ETFs trade on exchanges, there's a bid-ask spread, a tiny gap between the buy price and sell price. On highly liquid ETFs like SPY or QQQ, this is negligible. On smaller, niche ETFs, it can widen, something to be aware of. Now we're getting into the territory where ETFs really pull ahead. And this matters whether you're in the US, the UK, Canada, or Australia. In the United States, mutual funds are required to distribute capital gains to shareholders at the end of the year, even if you didn't sell anything. The fund manager sells holdings inside the fund, triggers a taxable event, and you get the tax bill. This catches a lot of investors off guard in December. ETFs use a mechanism called in-kind creation and redemption, a structural quirk that allows them to avoid distributing those capital gains internally. The result? You typically only pay capital gains tax when you decide to sell your ETF shares. You control the timing. That is a massive advantage for long-term compounding. For UK investors, ETFs held in an ISA are sheltered from capital gains tax entirely. Mutual funds work the same way inside an ISA, so the tax advantage matters most for taxable accounts. For Canadian investors, ETFs inside a TFSA or RRSP behave very similarly to mutual funds. The tax shelter does the heavy lifting. But in a non-registered account, ETF efficiency wins again. For Australian investors, ETFs held long-term, over 12 months, qualify for the 50% CGT discount, and their structure keeps internal turnover low, which reduces unnecessary tax events. The takeaway across all 4 countries: in taxable accounts, ETFs are almost always the more tax-efficient vehicle. Let's run the scorecard. Mutual funds, where they win. Active management can outperform in inefficient markets. Think small-cap international stocks or niche bond categories where an expert eye genuinely adds value. For investors who want a fully hands-off experience with automatic rebalancing, dollar-cost averaging into a mutual fund is seamless. Many allow automatic monthly investments with no brokerage friction. And for 401k plans in the US, mutual funds remain the dominant vehicle. Your workplace plan likely offers them as the primary option. Mutual funds, where they fall short. Higher costs, lower transparency. Most only disclose holdings quarterly. Less tax efficient in taxable accounts. And the hard truth: the majority of actively managed funds underperform their benchmark index over a 10-year horizon. S&P's SPIVA report consistently shows 80 to 90% of active funds lag the index over time. ETFs, where they win. Low cost, tax efficient, intraday liquidity, full transparency. Most ETFs publish their holdings daily. Accessible globally. You can buy a US-listed ETF from a brokerage account in London, Toronto, or Sydney. And they cover everything from broad market indices to specific sectors, themes, and factors. ETFs, where they fall short. You need a brokerage account to buy them. For very small investors, buying whole shares could limit precise dollar-cost averaging, though fractional shares are now widely available. And the sheer number of ETFs, over 10,000 globally, can overwhelm new investors into making poor choices. Let me speak directly to you, wherever you are in your wealth journey. In your 30s and 40s, time is your greatest asset. Low-cost, broad market ETFs are your best friend. VOO, VTI, VXUS in the US, VWRL or HSBCF TSE All World for UK and European investors, VGS or A200 for Australians, XEQT or VEQT for Canadians. Max your tax-advantaged accounts first: 401k, ISA, TFSA, Super. Then go taxable with ETFs. In your 50s, you're entering the transition zone. A blend makes sense: core ETF holdings for low-cost growth and selectively exploring bond or dividend mutual funds if your 401k or pension plan offers them with reasonable fees. Watch those expense ratios. Anything above 0.5% deserves scrutiny. At or near retirement, 60s and beyond, stability and income matter more. Dividend ETFs, think VYM, SCHD, or iShares Core Dividend ETFs for global investors, can provide income without high management fees. If you're drawing down, the tax efficiency of ETFs helps preserve more of what you've built. I promised you real numbers. Here they are. $10,000 invested over 20 years, assuming a 7% annual market return before fees. In a mutual fund charging 1.0% annually, your $10,000 grows to approximately $28,000. In an ETF charging 0.03% annually, your $10,000 grows to approximately $38,500. That's a difference of over $10,500 from the exact same market return. No extra risk, no extra skill, just the fee. Now scale that to $400 a month over 20 years. The way David from our opening story was investing, the gap becomes over $80,000. That's not a rounding error. That's a car. That's a year of retirement income. That's compounding, stolen quietly by fees. David eventually switched. His neighbor didn't need to do anything special. He just started in the right vehicle. Now it's your turn. If this video helped you see your investments differently, smash that like button and subscribe to Real Wealth Hack, because next up, we're breaking down the top Fidelity ETF. You won't want to miss that one. See you in the next video.